Hi, everyone. This is What is Truth Clarified with your host, Angelina Magianis. We are doing Bible study, and we are in Genesis 25. Do you have your Bibles ready? Here we go. The word says that Abraham took another wife. Now, we just looked back in two chapters. In chapter 23, Sarah died, his first wife, his only wife that he had before that. She was 127 years old. So Abraham was 10 years older, so he's 137 years old at that time when she died. A little time passes. Now we're in chapter 25. He took another wife. The word says, well, Abraham is before the law, but God always intended for man to have one wife. He gave Eve to Adam, and there was no hint of he should have another wife. It was never that. That came when mankind's appetite changed. It changed in every single way, and that was one of the ways it also changed. Mankind wanted more of everything. They covet everything. I see another beautiful woman, Solomon. I want that one. I want that one. I want that one. That's how Solomon accumulated 700 wives and 300 concubines. And Abraham, his wife passed. Even in the New Testament, it says when your spouse passes, you are as if you are free to marry another, because you are on your own. You don't have a pact with anyone anymore. You were in a covenant with your wife, with your spouse. You were one together. And he doesn't have that covenant anymore because she passed. Those promises are only in the flesh. In the spirit, God says when we go to heaven, we do not get married. We're not given away in marriage. We're like the angels. We don't need that. We don't need another one to help us. We are completely fulfilled, just ourselves. We have everything. We are just like Jesus. We don't need any of that. We don't need a spouse to help us. We can do everything. We don't need someone to help. So Abraham takes another wife whose name was Keturah, and she bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Now, he couldn't have one child. And then God told him about giving him a child with his other wife. And they were both very old. And he was 100 years old at that time. 100, and he never thought he was going to have a child. He was 100. Now, at this time, he is somewhere around 137. He could be a little bit older, a couple years it could have passed. And even more unthinkable at their time, having another child, and not just one. He has quite a few here. So he has some strength as a man, as Sarah had a lot of strength in her old age. They lived at a different time. They didn't have all these chemicals. They didn't have all this other kinds of foods we ate. And Abraham was a blessed man. And we'll see what else is here because he's a blessed man. And why did he live more and on longer than Sarah? We don't know. It doesn't say why she passed away. It doesn't say, but things just happen in our lives. Things just happen to people. And it doesn't say that Abraham asked if God could help her to be risen from the dead. It didn't say anything. We don't know what happened. It doesn't say. But God, who can do anything, could have did that. But it doesn't say. But the word does talk about sins and things of that nature. And they did some things in their life, but it doesn't say any of that. What happened? And we don't need to guess. We just have to see there's a reason for that. And sometimes we will not know some reasons. And then Abraham moves on, marries this woman. She had all these children. And then there's more time that passes. And the first child grows. The second child, and Jokshan had his own kids, Sheba and Dedan. And also, Abraham had to have a wife that was younger as well because she had to be having children. And he doesn't go into any details here about her being very old and how is she going to have children. No, it doesn't say any of that. We can look on this story and see that she probably was younger and was able to have children. And Abraham probably did not look like a very, very old man, even though he was aged in years. And the sons of Dedan were Asherim, Letishim, and Leumim. And the sons of Midian were Epher, Hanak, Abidah, Eldah. And these were the children of Keturah. And Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac. Isaac was his chosen child, his first child, with his true first wife. Many people in their hearts to say, and they get married again, the spouse dies, and sometimes they get married a couple of times and the spouse keeps dying. But sometimes they get married again the first time and the only time, and they say, but my first wife or my first husband, he was my true real spouse. This is different, but I felt the need to marry again. But that time was past. You need to leave that life behind because when you bring that marriage into the next marriage, you can sometimes not on purpose, but sometimes in little ways hurt your new spouse because they may not be in your eyes this high like the other one is, and you put them higher and you mention them a lot. Well, that was the old life, just like Abraham had to leave that old life behind. That was the old life. And you honor her in your memories, in your thought, but it's not something to always bring up in the new marriage because that life is past. It's gone. And if you're going to carry on in your new marriage, you have to leave everything behind. You have to for the marriage to go well. And these were her children. We said all that. And he gave everything to Isaac because Isaac was his child in his eyes. He gave gifts to the other son he had through the servant, Abraham's servant before was Hagar. He gave gifts to Issachar, but Isaac is the main one. And he gets married again here. He has all these kids and grandkids, but Isaac is still the main one. That's the one that God promised, the miracle child. But to these sons, and it specifically says this word, his concubines, Abraham gave gifts. And while he was still living, he sent them away from his son Isaac eastward to the east country. Now, what are we seeing there? Well, it's specifically saying concubines. Now, there's an S on there. There's a plural. Now, are we saying there's another woman here? It doesn't say another woman's name, but we know about the other woman who was considered the servant, considered a concubine. He had a child and gave gifts, just like he giving these gifts. And so this woman here, he's considering her a concubine, and to help him in his manly needs, and then to help because he still has these manly urges. He's still in the flesh. He's not born again man. He's even if you are, still have those urges, but he's still a man. And so this woman was brought to him to help him as well and take care of him because the man did his own things, has to take care of the whole household, everything. And he needs someone to help him in other areas. Like, sure, there could be, he had all these servants, so there could have been a cook, someone to clean and all these things, but he wanted a little bit of intimacy too. So she was considered a concubine. It doesn't specifically say that she was only a wife. Sometimes that word is used interchangeably, and we see right here it is. It says wife, but it also says concubine. So we know that she's used and as a position of a wife, in the position of a wife, but she is a concubine. And it says, these are the days of the years of Abraham's life. He lived 175 years. That is a nice long life. That's not the kind of life that people were living at this time. Just like today, sometimes we have people that live a little older. Sometimes we have people who are a little taller because all this comes from the genes from back then, and it shows up later. Things show up later, and but also he was very blessed of the Lord, and the Lord brings His own blessings into the situation as well. The time of long life stopped with Noah and his sons. Noah's sons, they didn't. Their lives were even cut shorter. One of them is show the age 600, and that was a few hundred years shorter than the norm of the ages. And after that, everyone lived normal, like today's time. But there was different reasons for everything in the Bible, and everything and everyone's lives and everyone's time and positions and places and their beliefs and everything. Sin, everything affected different things, and different people, their own lives affected, and the blessings affected how people lived and how long they lived. So he lived to be 175 years old, and he breathed his last and died in a good old age. After Sarah died, he lived somewhere around 35 more years after her death, after where he remarried again, because she died at 127, so he was 137, and you just subtract that, and he did live around 38 years old, 38 more years of long life, longer than her, plus the 10 years longer than he was beyond her age. But in this time, he lived around 35 years since he got a new wife and had kids, about 35 years of time there to enjoy this new part of his life, this new adventure of his life, to spend time with the children and even maybe with the grandchildren there. And just like Job, in the story of Job, Job got a whole new set of kids, and he lived to see them for 4 generations ahead. More blessing from the Lord for him to enjoy that time. All right, and he died and was gathered to his people. And Isaac and Ishmael, his son, buried him in the cave of Machpelah, not in the ground, in the cave, but still not living on the earth anymore, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar, the Hittite, east of Mamre. And like I said once before, sometimes people were buried in caves because they had money. And if you didn't, you're most likely to be buried in the ground. Jesus was buried in a rich man's tomb in the cave. In the field that Abraham purchased, he was buried in that he purchased from the Hittites. And there, Abraham was buried with Sarah, his wife. So he went back to the same place where his wife was buried, and he was buried there next to her, showing that he wanted to be still connected. He was still connected with his wife, and because she was his whole life. And after the death of Abraham, God blessed Isaac, his son, and Isaac settled at Beer Lahai Roy. So now it's Isaac's turn to go on and carry on where his dad left off. And these are the generations of Ishmael, the first son that Abraham had through his maid from Sarah. And she was the one that they went and tried to have a son on their own because she was tired of waiting. She didn't think she was going to have a child. She wanted a child, and God said there was going to be a child. So they went and had their own in a different way. So he was Abraham's son as well, whom Hagar the Egyptian, it says, Sarah's servant, bore to Abraham. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael, named in order of their birth. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, and Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, and Mesa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Nepish, and Kedemah. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their families by their villages and by their encampments, how they were separated and lived 12 princes according to their tribes. An exact way similar to Isaac, he's going to have a son, and they're going to have that's where we get the 12 tribes of Israel come from. And his son will be called Jacob, which turns into Israel. And here on the other side, the other son, he gets a replica of that 12 princes according to their tribes. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. And he breathed his last and he died. There isn't much more of a story about him except for what God says before. And that's why we don't hear all the life in there. It's not of the promised children, but God took care of them and was gathered to his people. And they settled from Havilah to Shur, which is opposite Egypt, in the direction of Assyria. He settled over against all his kinsmen, and he was against them, like God had prophesied before. He would be a wild, a man compared to a wild donkey. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son, the promised son. Abraham fathered Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Armenian, the Aramaean of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Aramaean, to be his wife. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren, similar to his mother. Now, remember that this is not the time of the law. And she was barren, and it may have been something from just this side of the family. Things went, like we call today the word hereditary, in the genes. Something could have happened to that. It could have been something else. But he prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. The Lord granted his prayer. He helped her because she had to have children, because Isaac was promised to have many, many people that were going to come out from him. And Rebekah, his wife, conceived. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. But it also already told us the children in her. So she's having twins. And the Lord said to her, but she doesn't know it. The Lord spoke to her. And he told her that there are two nations in your womb, two people, two different groups of people will come from them. Two people from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger. And it's usually the other way around. The older is the firstborn. They get the double blessing. They get all of that. But God says it's going to be the other way around here. And he's prophesying about their lives. And when her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first child came out, was red all over his body like a hairy cloak. His hair had a different color to it, not of their color. It was different. And his body was a lot of hair all over his body. So because of that, they chose names by what was going on around them. And because that was a big thing, his name was called Asu. So that's what it meant. After that, his brother came out with his hand holding Asu's heel, holding the heel of the first baby trying to get out. So his name was called Jacob. So that's what Jacob means. And Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. And when the boys grew up, Asu was a skillful hunter, a man of the field. That was his way. What he did, occupation, you may say as well. And while Jacob was a quiet man, completely different. Children come out, we know what we see, what we're close to, and what we interact with. And one was more close to one parent than the other. And Jacob was a quiet man dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau, and Isaac was showing favoritism to Esau because he ate of his game. He liked the result of his hunting. So he showed some favoritism because of that. But Rebekah, she was showing favoritism to the other son, Jacob. It says Rebekah loved Jacob. Now, that is never a good way to be. We cannot show favoritism from one child over the other. Yes, sometimes it seems like we're helping one because one needs a little bit more help, but we should not show favoritism. Every child needs to be nurtured the same and shown that they're all loved the same. And it says, once when Jacob was cooking some stew, so Jacob is cooking. Men can cook, yes. Sometimes people in the old fashioned, they still have an old fashioned mind and they think, no, the man shouldn't be cooking. Never. But he's cooking here. If we look at later on in the temple, God had the men showing it's not beneath them. The men were sewing, the men were cooking, the men were cleaning, the men were singing. The men had all kinds of jobs. It says, once when Jacob was cooking stew, a Sioux came in from the field and he was exhausted, very exhausted, so tired. And a Sioux said to Jacob, let me eat some of that red stew because I'm so tired. I'm so tired, he says. He was exhausted, it says. Therefore, his name was called Edom. So now he gets another nickname. And Jacob says, sell me your birthright right now. If you really want some, I'll give you some. I'll give you some, but sell me your birthright. The birthright was a big thing, but they're not getting that yet. They haven't received it yet. So it doesn't really seem as something yet because it's not in their hands. It's just some words thrown around. And he says, sell me your birthright. And he's not taking it very seriously that that's not something that you're supposed to sell. And the Sioux says, I'm about to die. One day. Maybe he ate in the morning before he went out. But one day, and he's saying he's going to die because he hasn't had food, because he's exhausted. You just rest and you'll be fine. He says, I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me? He's way overdoing it. Very dramatic. Why didn't he just give him some water? Why didn't he ask for some water? And Jacob said, okay, swear to me now. He is taking full advantage of this. And he's saying, if he's going to do this, then swear it. They know if they swore, that meant everything. He says, swear to me now. And maybe in his head, he's thinking, maybe in his head, Asu is thinking that this is nothing. I'll just push it off later. I won't really sell him my birthright. He says, swear to me now. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And then Jacob gave Asu bread. He said, okay, here. Gave him the bread and gave him the lentil stew. And Asu ate and drank and got up and went his way. Oh, I guess he wasn't dying. I guess he wasn't dying. And he gave him a little bit of food and he went away fine, perfectly fine. We don't die. And this has been a long time without eating. And they had a lot. He just ate at least the day before. Then Asu despised his birthright. Ugh, I can't stand this birthright because it's not even mine anymore. I sold it to my brother, so he just hated it. He didn't want to talk about it. We in the middle of a problem of something we don't see right, and we want something right there. And then in relationships, that's a big one. What people do is they're not thinking clearly, and they have an affair, and then they go back to their wife or their husband and they're thinking, what did I do? And in a moment of weakness, they do something bad. They get tempted and they go and do something bad, and not just in there, in other areas. And he had a moment of weakness that was not should never have been handled like that. He could have called his dad, he could have called his mother, and had said some other words to his brother and said, "Stop that. Stop that playing. I really need some help. Just help me up or just give me a little taste of some bread or something." Anything. There are many things that are very serious and we're not taking serious. And that's what we can get out of this. So you need to look and see everything you can draw out of here for your own self. And maybe many revelations came to you while you were hearing. And write those down and look at them because the Lord wants to show you more. Every time you read, there's something else that it needs to be said. There's more that can be said and added to the story. The Lord reveals more and more. So I pray you got something out of this. And we'll see you next time. And this is the end of Genesis 25. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Have a wonderful day. Amen.